All right, welcome to another episode of Learning HTML5. My name is Matt. Today we're going to cover jQuery and integrating jQuery into our web documents. If you're not familiar, jQuery is a JavaScript library that allows us as web developers to quickly integrate interactivity and dynamic elements into our web documents. Once you learn the syntax, it can be very quick to get jQuery happening to your advantage and to your benefit. And yeah, so let's just dive in. The document that I have for us to work with today is a very simple HTML document. You'll see that there's just an H1 tag, a link here to view latest news, and then a little list with an H2 of my latest news. And our goal by the end of the episode is to make this link a trigger to show that latest news. All right, so we'll switch to code view, and I have Coda running here, but of course any HTML is just a standard text document. You can use any text editor. But you see my H1 tag, my link, and the div tag that's surrounding the My Latest News block element. On my link, I have an HTML ID of Show Latest News, and in my wrapping div element, I have the ID of Latest News. All right. Our first step is to get jQuery loaded onto our page. So in order to do that, we have two options. One, we could go to jQuery's website and download the jQuery scripts and host them along with our web application. Or a much faster way is to go to Google and do a Google search for Google jQuery. Google's CDN hosts jQuery for the world to use. It's going to be the fastest loading element. Unless you have your own CDN, I would recommend using Google's. So a Google search for Google jQuery will bring you to Google's hosted libraries, jQuery, and then they give you even the HTML snippet to just copy and paste into your web document. Excuse me. So I have pasted that here. Now, my HTML page that we're working with today is just saved on my local desktop, and Google is going to start their URL with the 2 forward slashes, which means that it's going to auto switch from HTTP to HTTPS. Because I'm just on my local machine, I need to put in HTTP. We'll save that. And now jQuery is being loaded with my document. It's also worth noting here that they're going to give you the current version of jQuery in that HTML snippet. So when I just copied it, that's version 1.8. They're not going to always give you the latest version, so you're going to need to maintain your jQuery versions if you want to load the latest. All right. In my JavaScript block element down at the bottom of my page, we'll start putting in our jQuery code. jQuery starts with a $. And before we do any JavaScript, we need to make sure that our page is fully loaded. Ready, if I can type. There we go. All right, and this block is the beginner of waiting to see if the document has fully loaded. Let's say we have a full large HTML document and our jQuery might be affecting elements at the bottom of that page. Well, we can't define some active jQuery definitions to affect those elements until they've fully loaded. So jQuery has a built-in .ready function that allows us to wait to perform any actions until the DOM has fully loaded. So document.ready, and I'll put in a function here to parentheses to curly brackets. All right, now we're ready to start putting in some jQuery code. So to get started, I'll just put in a standard JavaScript alert. jQuery is now. And parentheses, so that's just a simple JavaScript string to an alert. I'll save, switch to the browser, switch to my page, hit refresh, and jQuery is firing that simple JavaScript alert, showing us that jQuery is indeed loaded. Now, while I'm here, just want to mention console.log because it's so powerful. jQuery rocks. And so does console.log. Now, what console.log does, I'm a big fan of Google Chrome. Other browsers have this as well, but there is a jQuery console that if you right-click in Chrome and go to Inspect Element, and then there's a console button, that gets you to the JavaScript console. And anytime that in your JavaScript you do console.log, that's going to write to the JavaScript console. You can write strings, variables, arrays, objects. It's very powerful in helping to troubleshoot your document. But the caveat is console.log is not cross-browser compatible. And if the console window is not open in Internet Explorer, it will cause an error and all your JavaScript will stop working. And it's a very sad day. So that's console.log. Use it to your advantage. Okay, carrying on, we need to attach a trigger to our link. So we'll say show latest news. All right. jQuery can transverse the DOM and look for specific ID elements, HTML tags, CSS classes, and attach elements to those items in that regard. So right here, I'm just saying, all right, we're gonna look in our HTML document for an ID, which is represented by the hashtag show-latest-news. All right, and that is our link right up here that has the ID show latest news. Now, we can't really do anything to the page yet because I haven't hidden my latest news block. So let's go back, and I don't have any external CSS files loaded here. So I'm just going to put in an inline CSS of style display none. And that's going to take everything within the my latest news and hide that. So if I refresh, that block is now gone. So our link is waiting to show the latest news. So we have $, parentheses, apostrophe, show the ID of show latest news. All right, here's where we attach our trigger. .on click. So when the user clicks on show latest news, fire the function that we define. And don't forget your semicolon at the end. So now to give ourselves a little bit of code breathing room, I'll make a new line and we'll say the ID latest news apostrophe parentheses dot show and then two parentheses. Don't forget your semicolon. Save. All right, so now if I refresh and I click on my link, my latest news shows. Now that's all cool and fine and dandy, but what if I want to hide the latest news? All right, so jQuery has a handy function called toggle. And what toggle will do is it will first sense detect if the element is currently visible or not. And if it is visible, it will hide it. If it's not visible, it will show it. So every time I click, jQuery is going to check to see if it's hiding, then show it, or if it's showing, then hide it. So now I'll switch back, I'll refresh, and now when I click, every time I click, I'm either showing or hiding. Kind of slick. But it gets even better because there's one more thing called slide toggle. I'll give you one guess as to what this is going to do. Click and it slides down, click and it slides up. Very handy way of making the page come to life. But we have a problem. This link always says view latest news. Well, when the news is showing, I want that link to change to say hide latest news. And when it's hidden, say view latest news. So we can do that by putting in a function within our slide toggle, and the same would work within toggle or show or hide as well. But this function here will fire once the animation is complete. So here is my function wrapper. And I'll just put in a simple if here and say if, and we'll look for latest, forgot a hashtag, latest news, parentheses, is, now this is a Boolean, and it's checking to see if what we define is valid or not, and it's going to return true or false. So that's how we can use it in an if-then statement. Visible. All right. So here's what we got. If latest news is visible. So this is either going to return true if the latest news is now showing, or it's going to return false if the latest news is now hidden. Now remember, this function is not going to fire until after the animation is complete. So I can know that the animation will be complete as whether it is showing or hiding. So I can then say, whoops, $, show latest news. Now jQuery has the built-in element of HTML, which is going to allow me to change the HTML that's within that tag. So right now it says view latest news right up here. That's the inside HTML. I could really use text too, but HTML allows me to be able to change HTML elements if I really wanted to. So what I'm going to do is change the HTML, if it's visible, to hide latest news. Put a semicolon after that, and then we'll put an else and say show latest news .html. Show latest. Actually, I called it view latest news. Well, you know what? I like show, so let's change it to show in both spots. All right, so let's review our little code line here. So we have an if-then block, if-then else. So if latest news is visible, change the HTML of show latest news to hide latest news. If it's not visible, if latest news is not visible, then the HTML of show latest news becomes show latest news. All right, let's save, and we'll switch back to our browser, refresh. Our link says show latest news. When I click, it shows it, and it changed the link to hide latest news. When I click on hide, it changes it to show latest news. And then back and forth. I could keep doing this all day long, all day, all day. Very slick. All right, so there's a little first quick primer to jQuery. I definitely recommend checking out jQuery.org for the full documentation on the jQuery.org, jQuery.com, jQuery.com, documentation. And in this URL, you can see all of the different elements that we have done. So if we search for slide toggle, you can see the definition for how slide toggle works and some other examples. Great site, and it allows you to extend your knowledge, which is what we're all about. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, and hope to see you next time. Thanks.